game. Best of 7 in the playoffs between VortiX and LucifroN. But this is only one of what I'm sure will be a long series. So let's get on with it.
Spawning in on the northern side, it is going to be one of the Spanish brothers, LucifroN playing as the French in blue, and to the south, it is going to be VortiX with the English in red. And let's take a look at those openings. Both of them opening up with a second scout. No surprise about this one. This almost become meta for every single civilization nowadays.
Yeah, there was a while where we saw some people being greedy little tykes. I think the most obvious one was the Bassids, I think, were the last of the party. But pretty much every civ nowadays acknowledges that two scouts are important. And I wouldn't expect any less from two StarCraft veterans. I feel like the StarCraft community was really leading the way when we saw AoE2 pros coming in and StarCraft pros coming in, and maybe some people from some weird question mark RTSs that we ask why they spent their life on it. We won't mention which ones those were. But overall, it was the StarCraft people that were really prioritizing scouting vision, which makes sense in an RTS that is all about counters.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Information is such a critical resource, especially early game, and especially against the English, because as you said, the English have diversified their playstyle very well recently. So you need to really check out how aggressive the English player is gonna go. Is he just going without farms, council halls, super aggressive with longbows and spears, or is he going to focus more on the farming eco? When it comes to the French, you have to scout out whether the French player is going for a second town center. So that need for information is something that now forces players to add an extra scout in Dark Age.
Yeah, especially considering even a civ like the English isn't one-dimensional anymore, right? We've seen Lombo still making an appearance. Sometimes we see the double stable horseman push. Sometimes it's not even a counter haul. We go into Abbey of Kings. There's also the delayed feudal that's becoming more and more popular, where people choose to wait until about 5 minutes to go feudal so they can bolster their farms. And I haven't even talked about the possibility of a man-at-arms rush, something that I don't expect to really see too often in Golden League, because it does feel, I don't know if you feel this way as well, like the man-at-arms rush feels very RNG based on where the gold spawns for your opponent.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There is a high upside to that man-at-arms rush, and especially for a gold mine spot like this one, but we shouldn't forget that you have to blindly commit to that, because you don't know where that gold mine is at when you start making that barracks. So it is a blind commitment, and it also means that it is risky, because if it doesn't pay off, you are in trouble. VortiX dropping his own signature farm placement. He was the first player to start doing this, shifting those farms one tile closer to the town center, and most players started to follow his footsteps in this regard.
Yeah, I believe it was getting about, in 7 or 8 minutes, you're getting about an additional 8 food, which doesn't sound like much, but it's like, honestly, it doesn't really cost you any additional time, and you're making more resources. The effort is minimal to do it. And
It ain't
also,
much,
it
but it's
keeps it a
honest
really bit
work.
safer. Exactly. I mean, it's a farmer's life, right? Like, it's back in those days, especially, they didn't make that much bank. It's not like being a farmer these days with your 50,000-pound tractors and your, 1,000,001 wenches. Like, they had it harder back in the Age of Empires 4 days.
Now, VortiX, despite his signature farm placement with the English, he's only standing at 2 and 5 when it comes to his games with the English, so not a spectacular win rate for him when it comes to using the English. On the other side, LucifroN, mixed results with the French, 5 wins, 4 losses so far throughout the Golden League.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising, right? Like, VortiX, I feel like he's one of these English connoisseurs, though. Like, from start to finish, he's always been an avid admirer of it. LucifroN to a lesser degree, but also we've seen a decent amount of English out of him. I think it's maybe more a lack of flexibility. I feel like VortiX is still very much in the kind of Lombo department. He hasn't really been one of these knight connoisseurs, the Abbey Kings connoisseurs, as you can see, going from Council Hall. And I think that lack of flexibility can sting you at the highest level of play, where if you're playing closer to the standard English build, I don't think there's a single civ that's build has been more figured out than that one.
And I think players also got a lot better at defending. So back in the days, an English longbow and spearman rush was very devastating. Nowadays, if you take a look at the skill level of the best players out there when it comes to defending, they can hold off that early aggression. We have seen instances of that with the Abbasids today, for example. And that motivates players to go for more greedy builds, and it weakens these more aggressive early feudal age openings that the English were so good with back in the days of early age vampires for competitive tournaments.
Yeah, it just, I think for a long time, people like English OP, especially in the beta, right? Like, this is ridiculous, ram rushes, whatever, enough, please. But then people started to kind of realize that it's very basic. It's very one-dimensional. And if you anticipate it and read it correctly, like, you can adjust for it. Even on maps like Dry Arabia, I think Dry Arabia is very much an awkward map to fall all in on the lombos, just because if your opponent gets like a double wood spawn close by, a small palisade line completely blocks your ability to raid. It's very frustrating to play English lombo spam these days.
Yeah, exactly. And players also start to figure out that instead of directly trying to engage that army, they should just try to isolate that army, cut off the reinforcements, and then slowly build up their own archer numbers. So the reaction to such early feudal age aggression, especially against the English, has improved substantially for all players throughout the scene. And that makes it way less viable nowadays for the English to go for that good old-fashioned full longbow spearman rush.
Yeah, people just don't really get baited into going after the lombos on the front line, right? They just go after the reinforcements because they realize, wait a second, you've got what seem like people with some sort of arthritis in the hip running very slowly across an open battlefield. That's ripe for the taking, especially for a civ like the French, which is why I think it's going to be cumbersome for VortiX to move out. And the amazing thing about what LucifroN's doing right now, he's getting info, he's boxing his opponent in, and while he's doing that, he's prepping for a secondary TC that VortiX probably doesn't even know is happening right now due to his scout location. Oh, wait, no, he has one there.
Yeah, he has a scout. You can see it on the minimap. There is a tiny little red dot right next to that zone. So he's aware, and even if he wasn't, I get the feel that if he didn't see an archer range specifically, then he should expect a second town center, because the French are either going for knights and archers, or they're going for that second town center. The concern for VortiX over here is that I'm not exactly sure about the reaction to this. Makes me feel like he wants to just play fast castle here with the resources being banged up and work towards his King's Palace as his second town center, essentially. But this is something that's still going to be concerning, because obviously the French have the faster training villagers, and it's not really a big deal for French to fall behind in castle age timing. We have seen that over and over again.
No, one thing I'm curious about right now, if we go and check on the scout that is near the neutral marketplace in LucifroN's base, like, does LucifroN even see that scout? I feel like it's just out of range. Okay, the VortiX has ruined it by moving it, but I felt like he was hiding that info, scouting out the second TC intent from LucifroN. So really well played with the positioning wise. Like if we look at LucifroN's perspective, I don't think he can see on the neutral trade, which is a really big deal. Like he'll now know the scout's there, but you made this play. Yeah, you can actually see it on the fog. Like he didn't see it. So that info that was being fed back to VortiX, LucifroN had no clue it was happening.
Yeah, that's exactly it. With that being said, second town center going up here for LucifroN. On the other side, VortiX is going up to Castle Age. You could see that LucifroN was also probing those stone mines close to the base of VortiX, so he was checking out whether the English player is going for a second town center, which would be a bit unorthodox, but not something that is unprecedented by any means. So we have seen English players trying to play 2 town center feudal into King's Palace to make it 3 town centers combined, as a response to greedy French builds, for example. I don't think it's a good idea, but it's definitely something that's an option for the English, and LucifroN want to make sure that VortiX isn't doing that.
Yeah, it kind of feels like if your answer to greed is more greed, like at what point does it stop? Because we've seen games where a French player sees that you go greedy and they go even more greedy. It's like, fine, I'll go 3 TCs. And it's like, well, I'll go 3 TCs. Fine, I'll go 4 TCs. And you just turn into a TC battle. And if you do that, at the end of the day, the French are still better off. You know, they've got economical benefits with research on the economy wings costing 30% less. On top of that, they produce villages faster. So overall, just not a good idea to get Uh-oh. Those are 2 Tapper Knights. Wait, no. Actually, I don't think he has the Blacksmith yet, so it's taking 3 hits, but it's still good enough to delay the timing.
He has it, but one of those weren't a charge. But that King's Palace is so far out there, and you're gonna have to pull all your longbows to deal with that knight. If you're LucifroN, you commit to this, because every second you delay that town center is eco for VortiX. That's a disaster for VortiX, having that town center open like that. Oh.
Yeah, it looks like he's just allowing for it. I mean, it's going to go down in the end. Like, there's no way he can stop this. There's just too many villages invested, so LucifroN doesn't admittedly strike at as many villages as he could, but he has the info feedback. He has to feel comfortable, because remember that he got his secondary TC first. Yes, he is now lagging behind tech-wise, but remember that the French Knights are pretty formidable. They get bonus damage after a charge, so should VortiX now transition into Knights, I actually feel pretty confident about the French play. I feel like the feudal French Knights actually match up reasonably well against the English Castle Knights, as long as you're not playing near this attack speed buffer from the network of castles.
That's exactly it, and of course you do have the Chivalry upgrade for yourself, so every damage that you take as the French, you can heal it back up, unlike the English, who essentially take permanent damage on their knights unless they make a monastery and get some monks to heal it back up. But that's quite unlikely, so there's also that extra advantage for the French here. But you know what else is better than Feudal Age Knights to deal with the English Castle Age Knights? Castle Age Royal Knights, because LucifroN is on the way to Castle Age in a second as well.
Yeah, you catch up fast. Like, this is the power of the French, right? The second TC, we talked about the increased production rates. Also, any sort of eco gains are cheaper, so his wheelbarrow didn't cost as much. Got his melee tech up for free. It's kind of just absurd civ. Like, I think because people figured out other civs, it doesn't seem as unbalanced. But I remember when the game first came out, people were like ripping their hair apart. I remember Nilly put up like an ironic video. It's like, so you're telling me that they get the melee tech upgrade for free, and they get a 30% eco discount, and they're gonna produce villagers quicker. Doesn't this sound a bit broken to you? No. It's like, well, it's a lot. And you definitely feel it, but I think that's just a praising to how deep Age of Empires 4 is now compared to when it first came out, that people have found ways to not just make the French the go-to choice.
Yeah, that's exactly. It looks like the first knight is making it into the base of LucifroN here. That's going to be a dead villager for LucifroN. But he's on the way to Castle Age. In fact, he's already up, so he's going to have Veteran Royal Knights himself to deal with this, I assume. Because so far there is a bit of an underreaction to this. He finally pulls all the villagers. That's going to hurt quite a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. It's slowing you down, the gathering, and you can't really afford to be slowed down right now. Like, LucifroN is not really holding much surplus gold, so we'll quickly knee-jerk react, get back on lines ASAP. Might lose 1 or 2 villagers for it, but you'll still have a villager lead even after that. It's just
that's exactly it.
Take a while with one knight to try and dispatch the Englishman here.
And I love how he's building the walls. He is conscious about the fact that he's got an eco lead here. You see, it is a 14 villagers lead right now, both players playing on 2 town centers. That villager grab is just going to widen as we go move forward. And there's a second piece of advantage here for LucifroN now, the guild hall. And if this game goes passive like it is right now, so just a couple of knights dancing around picking off 1 or 2 villagers every once in a while, you don't need to pull off your resources from that guild hall, which means you can start banking it up and then suddenly pull all of that off to just unleash hell.
Yeah, and it's quite frustrating right now for VortiX because he's already so far economically behind. Like, you can see the difference here. 15 villies between them, 14 at the moment. Overall, this isn't going to change. It's just going to get worse. Like, LucifroN has the quicker production speed, 17 seconds for each villy. You need to find a way in, and I like that you brought up those defensive walls. It almost creates kind of 2 castes of villagers, right? The lower class and the upper class. Some people get to be safe in base, and other people, they're like, no, please, don't send me out into no man's land. Not with knights out there.
And it looks like VortiX is also starting to wall up, which is a great way to negate the aggression from those knights. The problem is that it is going to be insufficient. VortiX needs something. He needs to start killing villagers or adding a 3rd town center or something. Get at least 3-4 relics for himself, because if he doesn't do that, plain and simple, he's falling behind so much in eco that at some point LucifroN is going to unleash the wrath of the French, and that time might actually come sooner than we expected.
Yeah, you say falling behind in eco. What about military? It's double the amount of knights for LucifroN, so even with the attack speed buffer, VortiX cannot take a fight here. Has to just walk away, and that means that he's going to have a lot of idle eco should LucifroN choose to die, but it seems for now, he's content with just denying the enclosing, right? He doesn't want to allow VortiX to have his own corner that he can't be raided in, the same way that LucifroN has walled up his side.
And he's also maintaining pressure. As long as those knights are there on the left side, VortiX has to respect that and keep his own knights back at home. And that opens up the possibility for LucifroN to start picking up relics. As you could see, he's starting to secure those. And that's once again an extra bit of advantage here for LucifroN. He's making sure that VortiX is not contesting those relics by maintaining military presence at the back of VorTX's eco.
And VortiX right now just feels kind of frustrated. Like, oh, I've invested into picking up these relics. I can't even get the safe one. And while you can't get the safe one, look who's taking the dangerous ones. LucifroN's moving out into the center. He's looking to pick up more relics. He already has 1 on its way back to base. And I could easily see this being a 4-1 relic split at this rate. Like, VortiX still doesn't have the troops to even get this first one.
Yeah, that's exactly it. He's slowly working towards it. But the thing is that LucifroN doesn't need to fight this one. He probably is waiting for Candle Settles. Actually, if you see on the left side of the overlay, you can see Candle Settles coming in as the upgrade, and it's probably not worth fighting for that, right? You would lose all your knights, your opponent would still probably pick up that relic, even if it's a little delayed. But if you wait, you might be rewarded with a much better fight by being able to utilize Candle Settles.
Yeah, he just got the charge off, so he gets the bonus damage out. Knights have to peel back, and as soon as they turn and burn, they're going to take in a few more clubs to the back of the head. Well, lol. Doesn't matter, they went after you anyway, they want the Knights. Oh, the clutch stabbing. Not able to take down the Knights initially, but heavy damage done is going to force the fight. Suboptimal for VortiX, he tries to shift away. We'll be able to retreat, but look at all your villagers, pull them back. will peel them away now, but that's a lot of idle eco. In the meantime, the fight's still going the way of LucifroN, even the assistance of the villagers with their bows out and the TC fire as well. It's not enough. VortiX does not hang around. He will bow to the French superiority as LucifroN opens this series up with a win.
This is a punch in the stomach for VortiX. I mean, this was clean as light for LucifroN. Every single move he made was essentially perfect, and VortiX didn't play a bad game. It was just the fact that LucifroN understood the situation. He understood that VortiX isn't really going to attack him, so he can get away with a very greedy play, and then taking just one crucial engagement, getting that surround in, and just having that critical mass of knights. And this is what the French are really powerful with. You might see the French player just sitting back, playing defensive on 2 town centers, and then in just the blink of an eye, they appear with 15, 20 knights and overpower you. Not a single crossbow on the battlefield for VortiX. He didn't have an archer range to produce them with, so it was just knight versus knight, and of course the French Castelage knights also overpowered the English knights here. Clinic from LucifroN and a big win on the neutral map.
Yeah, honestly, the impressive thing for me is just that both these players came out swinging, right? Something I was kind of a little bit concerned as to whether we could see it this early on in the series is I know VortiX, especially LucifroN joining them, because, you know, they kind of share strats to a certain extent, always scrim against each other. In long series, best of sevens, they like this concept of the throwaway civ. And I was wondering if we were going to see something like that happen in the first game, as historically it has for these two, where they try to bait their opponent into taking something strong so that they can throw away something weak. But no, I feel like both these players came in swinging. You know, VortiX absolutely loves the English. LucifroN is a dominant French player.